Hello, welcome again to another video. Here I am in Blackpool for a change, near the big one. This is an area called South Shore, near the Glitter Ball, and near the Solaris Centre as well, which never seems to be open. But it's not a bad day today. You see the sun poking through the chemtrails. I say chemtrails, I mean they might be normal clouds actually, so it just looks a bit grim. But it's northern England at the seaside, so it's always grim. Someone said to me the other day, "You've got a Buddha of Blackpool channel, why don't you speak some Buddhism, for fuck's sake?" So I will do. And I was thinking the other day about this Buddhist concept of all desire causes suffering. So I want to expand on that for my one listener. So this concept of desire causing suffering, we've got a thing there whereby if you are desirous of buying a BMW, the suffering will come when you have to pay for it, because it needs paying for. So if you get a good BMW, if like here's a nice tram for you. They're the new trams, by the way. Well, I say new, they've been around 15 years, but they're new to me. So if you get a good BMW and pay, let's say you pay 70 grand for it, you will have to pay for it somehow, unless you're a criminal. And even then you'll have to pay for it in your bad deeds. So you buy the BMW and then you suffer by paying for it. So that decision to buy it comes at a cost. You might come to despise it then. You might think, well, I really wanted this BMW, so, you know, to show the neighbours and my family how well I'm doing. But and then you may come to realise that you've bought it because you're trapped in a job 9 to 5 that you actually hate. You see in these car parks sometimes really posh cars, and then you realise that people have bought those posh cars to ameliorate their existential angst for having been imprisoned by a job they don't like. So they buy a token of freedom, which in this instance is a BMW. It doesn't have to be a BMW, of course. I just use that as an example of a very typical car that's bought on a lease to impress people. Look at the sea. So yeah, so you might make that decision and then come to hate it. There's Southport over there, and then scanning to the right we've got the Lake District. You can see the mountains over there. Great place, Blackpool Bay, as it's never called. So you might come to resent your purchase. You might think, well, this £70,000. You know, like when you buy a new car, you've got to put a small deposit down on your existing car. So they'll give you £2.5 grand for that. Then they'll put you on a lease purchase thing, which will be something. In the case of the BMW, maybe £850 a month. So you convince yourself that you can afford that. You can't really afford it, but you think that times in the future will be better. For most people, times in the future are never better, but they think they're going to be. So they get this credit anyway. It's £850 a month for 4 years, and then they've got to pay a final payment of whatever, £38,000. Now there's no way anyone normal, unless they've got generational wealth, can afford to pay that off. So then you're in a debt trap forever, just for wanting to show the neighbours how great you're doing. So then you'll come to resent the BMW, and you'll think, shit, what have I done here? It looks nice, it drives fast, I can push people from behind on the motorway, I can cut out with not indicating and cut in at the last minute and nearly causing a crash. It's all very good for that, but I come to resent this fucking thing. Why did I bother buying this? And of course you bothered buying it because you've got a frail ego, and this frailty is the cause of a great deal of suffering. So you've got a perfect example there of how desire causes suffering. So you've got the desire for the BMW, and then you've got suffering. And of course every purchase you make has a consequence like that. So look at the Hampton by Hilton, a very Eastern European looking block, but I'm sure it's nice inside. Nice bit of sausage for breakfast, and you're laughing. So you've got these two choices whether to have it or not have it. You either do this or that. This or that. You can't have both. So either buy the BMW or do without it. You've only ever got two choices. And this is the cause of a great deal of suffering. This is where the Buddhist theology comes in, really, theology loosely speaking, whereby the choice you make based on the fragility of your ego will either cause suffering or it won't cause suffering. And this is down to whether you make the choice to have it or not have it. Having it will cause suffering. Most choices you make cause suffering. So there's a pain that comes with the pleasure of the option. So for example, if I want to go onto that ride there, the so-called big one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I might enjoy it, but the pain of going up this thing, up this ascent there, and then coming down there will cause me suffering. It might bring some pleasure to me, but that choice will either be pleasurable or painful. So I can choose not to go on it and not have the potential pleasure, but also by choosing not to go on it, I don't have the potential pain. So if I abstain from using that, like I might abstain from alcohol, as indeed I do, then I won't have a rotten liver by drinking poison, but I won't have the so-called perceived pleasure by socializing with other drunken people who are poisoning themselves. So you see, there's always a choice, pleasure or pain, suffering. And this is a big thing. You can apply it to everything in life. The fisherman down there who has to stand there all day, maybe he doesn't catch anything, maybe he does, but he has to have the pain of standing there for the pleasure of catching a large fish for his tea, a big fish in a big pool, so in a Blackpool. So he has to have the pain of standing there in the cold all day to get the big fish. So it's all these choices we make, and each choice usually has a cost attached to it, and the cost is usually pain, whether it's financial pain or the pain of coming down that big descent there. Some kind of pain is attached to the choices. So if, say, here's another good example. If, for example, I was afraid of flying, it reminds me of flying coming down this thing, then, see, I love Spain, right? So if I wanted to go to Spain because I love it, it's 2 hours away on a plane or a 3-day drive. So I have to go out through the pain of flying in order to find the pleasure of Spain. And it's the same with anything. It's the same with the BMW purchase. It's the same as many things in life. We have to experience this. And to feel that security inside that comes with these purchases or choices, the actual security that we're looking for and joy that we seek, so say the Buddhists, lies within. So we don't need the BMW, we don't need to go to Spain, we don't need to go up this and down that for a thrill just because we can't feel properly, because we need to do something hysterical in order to feel, or take drugs in order to enjoy ourselves. We don't need that. The pleasure that we seek is already ours if we find it within ourselves. Now, to find that within ourselves, we need to seek a certain level of emotional intelligence and freedom. And we need to look at our demons. We need to look at what's hurt us and what's caused the fear in us, because there are only two basic emotions, which are fear and love. And fear is usually cast upon us during childhood by some or several events. So we need to look at that. We need to do what AA would call a fearless moral inventory and find out within us what makes us tick, which is a Herculean task, really. I mean, this isn't easy stuff, you know. In the hands of a gifted counsellor, you might be able to find answers and solutions. So we seek for that freedom and security. But it's very hard to have security, because usually the more security you've got, the less freedom you have, and the more freedom you have, the less security you have. So just to explain that briefly, you might be in a job that you despise that causes you want to buy a BMW to make you feel better about the prison you're in. And I mean, you'll convince yourself that the job's okay and that you're doing great for people, but really, if you're trapped all day, you're probably a prisoner of some corporate system. So you seek, so the job will give you security. You'll work in it all your fertile or fecund life, and you will have security that job can bring. Go into a big system like the civil service or some big conglomerate, and you will work in that for many years, and they'll give you a pension, they'll give you sick pay, holiday pay, maybe even private health care, and of course these things tie you more into the system, and there you'll be quite secure, because you've got this secure job, what the Japanese call the job for life, what used to be in Britain before Thatcher ruined the whole system. So you've got that corporate man job or corporate woman job, and you're there and you're working away and you've got no gaps in your CV, and so you can go to BMW because you feel trapped, and you can say, I want this BMW 7 Series, and the seller will know that you are seeking freedom, and because the freedom is represented anchor-wise in the car, it makes you feel free. You've seen the adverts with a BMW. The reality is that you'll be stuck on the M25 at fucking 3 miles an hour, but you don't realise that. On the odd occasion that you can open the throttle, which won't be in Britain anyway because of all the restrictions and cameras. So you buy this car because you've got the secure job, you've got the security of the job. Now, if you want freedom, you won't have a secure job. You will be like a traveller or a freegan, or one of these people. I mean, some people have that freedom because they are known as trustafarians, the trust fund kids who live on their parents' generational wealth. They enable them to travel and look independent, but they're actually living off their parents. So that's lucky if you can get that script, but you are born into that. You don't acquire that script by effort. In fact, very few things are acquired by effort, but that's another story, that's another video. So there you are, you've got the secure job in some civil service role that you really hate. You're doing lots of shit, you know what I mean. You go on the odd training day and have a few beanos, but it's not really a job that you wanted or liked. It's not what you dreamt of when you were at school, when you dreamt of being a singer or a fucking artist or a traveller or a photographer of Iceland. So there you are, you're trapped, but you buy the BMW to make you feel free. So you've got the security and no freedom. BMW represents freedom, but it isn't real. It's just another stone round your corporate neck. So so you've got no freedom. If you go for the freedom, you've got no security. And again, everyone, this would apply to everyone. You go to freedom and say, well, sod this corporate job. The Buddha of Blackpool's right, I'll go for freedom, I'll quit my job. Any of us, each and every one of us watching this video, about 3 people, could be in Brazil next week. You can get 800 quid together for an airline ticket, go on Skyscanner or Google Flights, and you'll be in Brazil next week for 400 quid. Anyone can do that. Start a new life. Be free. Be happy. Be free as you would be coming down this thing. Feel that freedom. Start the new life in Brazil. But none of us do, because we know that we're in a cage, and on every cage there is a lock to the key, and you put your key in the lock because you are free, really. And you look outside at the free world, you look at this great expanse of sea and capability, and you look at that and you think, well, I am free, I can just sail away, I can just fuck off forever, I can go to Brazil, I can catch a flight, I can do anything. Only fear stops you, only the introjections that your parents have put into you stops you from living fully. So you think, well, I can do it, but we don't. What we do, we come back into the prison and we say, well, I'll lose my pension, I'll lose my mortgage, I'll lose my job, I'll lose my credibility. If you've got a family, I won't be able to feed them. Can't go to Brazil and feed my family on dreams. I can only do that if I'm a trustafarian, and I can rock up in Bali and talk shit about how I make money, when really what you're doing is making money off the £4,000 a month that daddy sends you. So very difficult situation. So if you want freedom, you lose your security, and if you want security, you lose your freedom. And this is all tied into this or that, whether you go this way or that way, which is usually to do with choosing pleasure or pain. Now, to go back to my original point of Buddhism, Buddhists say that all desire causes suffering, and if you want to remove your suffering, then all you have to do is remove your desire. So if you have a desire for a BMW or a Mercedes or any other pile of shit, you've got to look at why you want that, and usually it's a quest for freedom. Usually it's a quest to impress someone. It's an ego-driven thing. Freud said we either do things for ego reasons or sexual reasons. So we've got to look at why. The BMW is perfect because the BMW arguably attracts women if you're an alpha male, and because it represents success, and it ticks a lot of boxes, a BMW. So you can either go down that route, or you can look within and say, hold on a minute, I've been shafted by the system here. The advertisers know that each person craves freedom, and they also know that most people are fucking trapped in some sort of corporate or state system, and to get rid of that is to be free. To look at that is to explore your own suffering and why you've trapped yourself into a life you don't want. Usually, as I said earlier, that's to do with parental interjections that have been banged into your head when you're young, so they inculcate fear into the young person, so they eventually won't go out there and sail to Brazil. Not that you could really sail to Brazil from Blackpool, but no one will take the key of freedom. Instead, we prefer the comfortable, turgid boredom in which most people find ourselves. So what can we do? We have to look within. As I said earlier, we have to look at what is keeping us trapped into the system. Usually fear is a big thing, but also there's this concept of suffering. It's as if we almost subconsciously want to suffer, but the truth is we don't need to suffer. And the other truth is that every happiness and every bit of freedom that we desire can be found within ourselves. Everything we want, we already possess. We already have everything in our heart. So if we want freedom, just go and get it. Put your fear aside and go and get it. Make a compromised version of the freedom if you need to. if you've got kids to feed, you don't want to shaft them, so it's got to be a decision made in, you know, sensibility. But that's what we're usually after, and that's the Buddhist story of today. So talk quite a lot today compared to what I usually do. I've stopped doing a lot of these videos because it feels pointless, to be honest. So hope you enjoy it. If you do, leave a comment below, press like and subscribe if you want to, and if you don't